Dream Cruise.
I put
We've
your
been here
envelope.
since
Okay.
1995.
You don't have yours on
This
your
might be the best Dream Cruise
right
yet.
club.
Weather's great. Yeah.
We've got over 100 cars registered for our lot here today. We're serving breakfast and lunch. Everyone is enjoying themselves, and as with everything with the NCRS, it all starts with the wonderful people that belong here.
So how'd the interview go?
I think it went good. It was like 15 minutes long, and he's going to edit it down to 3 seconds.
Oh, wow. What do you think?
It went a little longer than anticipated, but you know, it was very informative and insightful. It's for a series called Corvette Nation that'll be on Velocity starting September 13th, Friday the 13th, and it'll run for 13 weeks. And this will be a segment within that series, so you want to watch every episode.
Jim Williams, our judging chairman, is going to conduct the judging school this morning. And if you have any questions, complaints, go to Harry.
This morning we're going to talk about installation. Right? There's five areas we judge statically. One of them happens to be installation. We'll be looking at the 63 here. That's on the lift here from Mr. Sandlin. This car top flighted at the National. So hopefully we can find a few things in there that we can reference back to what's in the handout. I'm very pleased it's a 63 because I'm using information out of the 63 Assembly Instruction Manual. The 5 things that we look at when we're doing static judging, or in other words, the areas mechanical, chassis, exterior and interior, we look at configuration, date, completeness, installation, and finish. We're going to talk about installation today. Specifically, what I'm going to talk about is installation as it relates to the Assembly Instruction Manual. When Chevrolet started, they had to be able to provide something that somebody could build the Corvette to. And so the Chevrolet engineers developed a manual that could be used within the vehicle and engine assembly plants, depending upon what part that they were dealing with. As we affectionately know it, it's the Assembly Instruction Manual. I'm going to, from this point on, call it AIM for short. So that's a 3-letter acronym, or TLA. I'm talking about the Assembly Instruction Manuals. Mostly they went through, the assembly plant would assemble it based upon the various pages. And for the most part, the cars went together. Well, at least until they had an issue. And then they had to go in and they'd have to update the Assembly Instruction Manual. So why is it important to us? I mean, I'm a fairly intelligent individual. I don't think I need a set of instructions to be able to put my car back together. Any of you? Well, if you don't know how to put them back together, they won't go down the road right? So some of the opportunities here, if you don't assemble them, what we're looking at is, from an installation standpoint, installation can count for up to 20% in a specific area when we're looking at originality points. Okay, so if you've got something that's not assembled correctly, that may get noted. Could be direction of bolts. It could be the fact that this bracket overlapped that bracket instead of that bracket overlapping this bracket within the way that things need to go. The other area where it's very important is, if you don't assemble something right, it may not work the way it's supposed to during operations, or better yet, performance verification. Performance verification, you only get one shot to fix an issue. So you want to make sure that everything's installed properly. And again, the document that you go by is the Assembly Instruction Manual. And remember that installation changes did occur during years. So something that may be on your car may not be on the car that's in the same exact year, made 2 or 3 months before or 2 or 3 months after. And that, fortunately for us, we have a document that tells us when things were changed, and that's Assembly Instruction. All right. So what I've done is I've taken a few pages, and what we're going to talk about specifically today is how to read and interpret the Assembly Instruction Manual. I'm not going to go over anything specific on every detail of the Assembly Instruction Manual. We are going to look at one example specifically for this particular application. But as we move forward, again, we've got a list of contents. Okay, so the list of contents on this particular page is broken down by the list in which GM or Chevrolet specified various areas of assembly within the application. Okay, so if you look here, we got everything from general assembly up to the various suspension components, the engine, the transmission, all the way through electrical. And then they also have a section in the Assembly Instruction Manual that's associated with options. So these are the differences within the option package that's different from what the base would have been. These are typically the things that are either added on or deleted based upon what that particular option has. 2 other issues. Some of the options may have been canceled during the year. You're going to find that in some of the Assembly Instruction Manuals. You'll find various components that are specified to specific options. We'll go over an example at the end of this particular discussion. But when those options were canceled, they basically put cancel on the page and they give you the date that that particular issue was canceled and that particular reason why. So you'll find that in the 66, 67 range where the L88 was canceled, right? Even though they made some supposedly in those years. But you'll find that as Chevrolet was producing these cars, they were pulling these out. The other thing to note is the assembly instruction manuals that we receive today, the ones that you purchase, are a portion of what the entire year's worth of assembly instruction manual should be. For 1965, I actually saw the assembly instruction manual, the full set of documents out of the plant for 65. As you look at these books here, they're maybe an inch or 2 inches thick. That was almost 7 inches thick, and the 68 was another 2 inches on top of that. And it's all the changes that occurred throughout that year. So you can go back and reference every point as far as what they changed and where they changed it. So we're just looking at a snippet in time, and typically it's associated with the end of production. So you're seeing the last set of what they would have used on the plant floor. In some cases it may have been something earlier that they just didn't update for that last batch of information. Moving into the actual book itself, right? So the first thing you'll come across in the section is basically a contents page, right? So this basically lists all of the different types of assemblies that are going to be shown in the book. It'll point to the area in the vehicle where it's actually associated to. So if you come across a square box that's on the side that references a specific area, a circle indicates a change. All right, so a change to this particular page. If you look at your handouts, we go around the circle. The circle that I'm showing here is the one reference number 1. On this particular page, they added a sheet. They added a sheet for the convertible top installation. Okay, and that's what that references. That's identified down in the title block. So on the very bottom, you'll see here across the bottom. We'll go over this in a little more detail. What that specific change was. Okay, we get to the bottom. It shows you basically what the sheet is. So this is section 1. This is sheet B1.00, and there are different sheets throughout. It comes back to the different sections that are in that very first content page that I was talking about for the entire book. So let's move into a specific area from an assembly standpoint, and I happen to pick 63 bumpers, front bumpers. So there's 3 sections, right? We got the description area up in the very top. We have the illustration of what the assembly was and any of the notes associated with that. And then we have the title block. I'm going to break this down, okay, what each one of these are set up to do. So, and we'll take a look here at the actual vehicle once we go through how it's broken down. Confirm that this one is actually assembled correctly, because I have looked at it and I believe it is for the most part. We got a couple of things on the description piece, right? So this is the very top page, the very top of the page, the description. Here we have all the different items that are associated within the assembly. Okay, so whatever that illustration is, there should be something that corresponds here to identify what it specifically is. The other cool part about this, there are part numbers on here. So you can actually go, and if you're looking for a specific part number associated with a specific area, that's the part number you're looking for. So you can see here, I took out an example. This is a bolt, so its part number is 122267. If it's specific to a fastener that actually needs to have some level of torque to it. The triangle specifies or references what that torque, that particular fastener's torque should be, or fastener with a nut torque should be, okay? And that's referenced at the bottom of the page in the illustration. We'll show that here in a second. But the big bonus here is you've got part numbers in your hand as soon as you buy that assembly instruction manual. So you now know what to go look for. That's not to say you're going to find it, but at least you know what you're looking for. If you get the service manual or the parts book from a dealership, and you go through there and you're like, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that may reference 3, 1, 2, 6, 2, 5, but it was changed 3 times. It'll still fit the vehicle, but it's not the right part for the car relative to configuration. All right, we're going to move into the illustration now. This happens to be how the front bumper is supposed to go on this particular car, the 63. And noting a few of the key things here in the illustration portion of it, right? So here we've got some notes. It tells us what the bumper heights are supposed to be. If any of you have worked on a 63 or mid-year, you're very lucky if it all lines up, because the frames over the years sag, tweak, and sometimes you can't get the bumper brackets to go on there to hold the bumper exactly the way you expect it to be. All right, so the bumper has a specific height that it's supposed to be. That's the way it was supposed to come from the factory, right? You're supposed to be within a certain dimensional variation side to side. But again, that's how you can use the assembly instruction manual to help with the installation judging of a specific component. The thing that we have to be aware of is as the vehicles get restored, the new norm becomes what the current restoration parts are that are available. Judges get used to seeing, oh, it's going to look like that, and that may not be the way it was. NOS parts that actually go on and fit most typically better than what the reproduction parts are going to look like may not look specifically like the reproductions, but we get moved in our thought process to say that's the correct piece, not this piece.
And really, the trump card are the bow tie cars. So if you have a question about something, the right thing in my mind is to go back and look at the bow tie cars. There is a list of bow tie cars, and bow tie is all original. The whole point of judging is it original?
Things here to note on the assembly as we're looking at it. A couple of interesting things. If you note on this, I've got green, red, and blue. It won't show up on your black and white copies. But this green, let's talk about the green. So if you're looking at something and you got this little arrow and it says it's got an A or a B or over here, that's a breakout view. So they're going to take that particular viewpoint, which you can't see in the illustration, and they're going to pop it out into its own separate view. So this shows you how the brackets go together towards the frame in this particular issue. So again, I'm trying to help you understand how to read these so you can properly assemble the components. So instead of looking over here and saying, well, I think it's frame, this big bracket, this little bracket, actually it goes back to this bracket that comes underneath. It shows you that it's a bolt. It goes down from the top as opposed to the bolt coming up from the bottom on the frame. That's how it's broken out. But you can't see that in this particular view. Okay, so that's what they're trying to show you. All right. So now if we move to the red, here's the torque specifications. All right. So all torque specifications associated with any of the fasteners are typically associated at the lower left-hand corner of the illustration. Okay. This one has actually 3 denoted, and they're identified throughout that page. So they'll either be in here in the assembly. So as you see, we got the 1s and the 2s. Those are all defining bolts or washers or brackets or bumpers. Okay. So that's the big item. And then the triangle next to it is denoting what that fastener should be torqued to. Okay, and that's where that location is. So, and then we also have assembly of sequence in here as well. Now, if we go here and we look at the blue one on the page, I got it circled to this little circle. It's number 7. It's on your page. That denotes a change that occurred to that particular area, whether it's a part, whether it's an assembly, etc. This one happens to be to an assembly, so it's the assembly direction of the bolt, the nut, and the washer. So we'll look at in the title block the reference when that was, what that change was and how it was, and we'll take a look at this car relative to that just as an example. Okay, so that'll be our reference. And a lot of times the judging manual may not correlate to what this particular assembly direction shows. Okay, so be aware of that. This is the last area of a page. This is the title block. In the title block, there are several things that we need to know. You have the section and sheet number, so this comes back to that very first contents page for a specific section. It shows you this particular one is section 14, it's sheet A2. So if you go back to the contents, it'll say front bumper on the particular contents, the very first section we looked at. So again, the description or the title area tells you what the assembly is. So this happens to be the front bumper. This is 63. All right. The other thing that you'll see here is basically this little section. It's called the revision block. All right. So here's where the page was originally released and all the revisions that occurred on that particular page. We have the date that a specific revision occurred, the revision number itself. Now I'm going to go back to our example, right? Number 7 that we looked at on the illustration page. If I go over here to number 7, there's no date associated with it, so it occurred sometime between 8/24/62 and 11/30/62. I'm anticipating it occurred on 8/24 because there's no other reference to a date prior to that. It's not documented. And it says, description of items 16, 19, and 20 were reversed. So what they did was they changed the direction of the bolt. So instead of coming, in this particular case, instead of coming from the outside of the car to the inside of the car, the bolt comes from the inside of the car to the outside of the car. And also included in here are a couple of other items. And the one critical one that we really don't have a good understanding of is ECR. ECR, we've talked about this in the past, it's engineering change request. That's the document that says, I got to go change the assembly sequence. Or that's a document that says, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 doesn't work. I need part 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Okay. So those are the critical things, and that's where all of the engineering effort is. Why did I have to change it? Well, the guy couldn't put it in on second shift, right? So he said, let's go this way. That's a documentation that we don't have to understand why they did what they did and the sequence that they did. All we know is that 47875 changed the direction of the way that bolt goes in. That's all we know. And then finally, the last two sections in here is who drew it and who checked it. So typically you put in your initials, and that's the person who drew it, and then if the item needed to be checked, then there would be a checker that would also be included. All right, the last page, this is the Z06 page, okay? So on the very last portion of the 63 manual is the Z06 option. Everybody know what the Z06 option was for 63?
High performance.
It's a high performance kind of race car package. It included the fuel injected emblem or engine. Yeah, there was a fuel injected emblem there. It had a special brake system where it had a dual master cylinder on it. It had special brakes. It had heavy duty brakes. It had a heavy duty suspension. And up until about December, also included in option Z06 was big tank, the 36-gallon tank in the coupe. Now, you can only get the 36-gallon tank in the coupe, but in December of '62, they decided, you know what, we really don't want to release that tank as part of that option. It doesn't mean you couldn't get it. It just means that they pulled the big tank option, which is N03, out of the Z06 option, and that's what this document shows. So as we read through here on the descriptions, right, this particular sheet was canceled. You see the canceled in here. They didn't take it out. They just canceled the actual assembly of that particular portion of the option into option Z06. So what you'll find is if you find a pre-December Z06 and it's got a small tank in it, you have to question what were they doing, because this document says that occurred on 12/20 of '62. Now, do you think 12/21/62 the guys went in there and stopped producing Z06s with big tanks? No.
Big tanks were sitting there.
No, that's not what happens necessarily. Unless there's a significant production problem that stops the line, the command to do the order may not have been rolled out until much later. That's why it's difficult for us to understand, back to Don's question, when the break point actually occurred, right? So the engineer said back in December, right before he went on break for Christmas, he said, I got to get rid of that big tank. You know, it's way too expensive on the Z06 option, and we really don't need it on half the courses that we go race. One of the things for '63 was radios. They introduced AM/FM radios sometime in March. They still had AM radios lying on the shelf. People were checking box U65, right? They ordered them back in November. They're finally going to get their car in March or April. It's got the U65 instead of the U69 box check. Hey, I got an AM radio Wonderbar seeking Wonderbar over here. That went in the vehicle. The breakout view shows old block washer properly. This is like a March build car for '63, which is well after when that particular change went in. And you can see the bolts are assembled from the inside of the car to the outside of the car with the nuts and the washers towards the outside of the car. If not, that concludes our event.
Yeah, good job, Jim. Hey, Jim.
We are at the Dream Cruise at the lot here, and it's starting to fill up. We still have about 15 people that haven't showed yet, but we got their money, so if they don't come, that's their problem. Am I right, boys, here?
Yes, that's right.
All right.
And the weather is wonderful, and Mr. Rohde is doing an excellent job videotaping everybody and getting all the action. So look on the website and enjoy yourself.
Can I get a thing?
Absolutely. What's your name?
Steve.